Hey everyone, Sam here. Sorry it's been a while since I've uploaded a video. I'm still trying to get the hang of this YouTube thing. I've been bungling my way through iMovie trying to figure out how that works, but it's all good. I've always loved landscape art ever since I was a kid. It was always my favourite art, and I love sharing my painting knowledge. So I hope my videos inspire you to want to paint landscapes and seascapes. But I'm not saying that my way of painting is the only way to do it. There's lots of different ways of painting. There's lots of great art teachers out there as well, and there's some amazing knowledge and videos on YouTube for sure. But this is just what works for me, so I hope you enjoy it. Like you guys, I'm still learning to paint and I'm on an art journey as well, so I'm going to be trying new things also, and I'll probably make some videos about it too. So I thought I'd continue the theme from the last video of painting seascapes, and I'd show you how to paint a simple breaking wave. So in this video I'll cover the composition, blocking in the painting, then creating atmosphere and light in the painting as we build up the detail, and then adding final details that will make the painting come alive. So like with my other videos, there's some written notes to accompany it, so if you just click on the link below, there's a link there to my website that has all the written notes to accompany this video. Feel free to use the photos if you want to have a go at painting this, it's all good. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. It's enough of my rambling, let's start painting. Last year I went to the island of Guernsey. I love this place and the coastline is absolutely stunning. Great for seascape paintings, so I took lots of photos. Having gathered my photos in the field, I then sit down and decide which photos I'm going to use for my composition. I want to keep the composition relatively simple, but I also want to create drama and atmosphere in the painting. This is where darks and lights play an important role in the painting. It's also referred to as tonality. Tonality in a painting plays a considerable part in stimulating emotions. So the contrast between extreme darks and extreme lights causes an agitated feeling, whereas a closely related graduation of values produces a more restful feeling. In this painting I've opted for a wider contrast between lights and darks in order to create more atmosphere. These are some of the seascape reference photos I used in this painting. I decided I wanted to contrast the sea with a dark sky, so the reference photos I used for this were photos I actually took in New Zealand. Before I began my painting though, I sat down with my sketchbook and designed a composition, just starting with a few thumbnail sketches, and then once I'd had an idea, I completed a final sketch. And this gives me something to refer to when I start the painting, and also gives me an idea of tones and values. So in this painting, the breaking wave is the main focal point, making sure that it's not in the middle. And then I've got other supporting elements which lead the eye towards the breaking wave, which are the rocks in the foreground and the rocks on the right. The oil paints I'm using for this seascape include titanium white, cadmium yellow, yellow oxide, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cadmium red light, quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue, cobalt teal, and phthalo green. The brushes I'm using for this painting include a number 6 flat bristle brush, 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch dagger brushes, a number 2 filbert brush, a number 1 round brush, a number 4 fan brush, and a 1/2 inch Mundy mop brush. I'm working on a 21cm by 30cm canvas, which I've pre-prepared with a layer of burnt sienna, which helps to warm up the painting. I start by sketching out the composition with a round brush using titanium white mixed with quinacridone magenta and liquin. I'm using liquin to thin the paint, but also for the convenience that it dries the paint quickly. You may notice the grid lines on the painting. Well, this helps me place focal points and helps with the composition overall. Now normally I've wiped these straight lines off afterwards, but I completely forgot, but that's cool, that's sweet, it should be fine. Using a number 6 flat bristle brush, I start blocking in the sky, and I mix the colours for the sky with varying amounts of ultramarine blue, burnt umber, quinacridone magenta and titanium white. I wanted to paint a dark cloudy sky and give the impression of really stormy conditions. This also contrasts really nicely with the highlights on the sea. Next, I paint the horizon line of the ocean. When painting seascapes, you should never have your horizon in the middle, so either go for a high horizon or a low horizon. By having your horizon line in the middle, you'll be entering displeasing composition territory. It's not a world you want to enter. I mix the colour for the sea in the distance with ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, a little phthalo green, titanium white, but I also add burnt umber as well, and this helps to reduce the saturation of the colour so that it recedes more in the painting. Using a number 6 flat bristle brush and titanium white straight from the tube, I mark out the highlighted areas of the breaking wave and the white water. I'm not concerned at this stage that I'm using straight titanium white because I know it will mix in with the other colours once I start adding them. I'm using larger brushes in the blocking in phase because I want the painting to have a little bit of a looser feel. Also, at this stage I'm not concerned with detail. And so next I start working on the breaking wave, mixing the colours for the translucency using cobalt teal, phthalo green and titanium white. Then I start introducing ultramarine blue and cobalt blue to the mix as I start moving down towards the trough of the wave. As this part of the wave is in shadow, it's going to be tonally darker. Using these same colours, I start forming the shadows of the wavelets and ripples within the white water in the foreground. Next, I paint the shadow areas of the breaking wave and the foam and white water in the foreground. To do this, I mix varying amounts of ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, a little quinacridone magenta and titanium white. Using a 1/2 inch dagger brush and mixing ultramarine blue with burnt umber, I paint the shadows of the rocks. This is where my darkest tones are in the painting. Using another 1/2 inch dagger brush, I paint the areas on the rocks that are in light, and I mix the colours using varying amounts of burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow oxide, cadmium yellow and titanium white. This also helps to create the illusion of different textures on the rocks. Once the blocking in stage is complete, I allow the painting to dry, and then I can come back to it and start building up the detail. After blocking in the colours on the rocks, I return to the sea and just rework some of those areas, adding more highlight to the tops of the white water and the waves, and also refining the shape of the breaking wave. So now that the blocking in stage is complete and the painting's dry, I start reworking lots of areas of the painting, and using a number 6 flat bristle brush I start reworking the sky. I'm using the same colours that I used before, which include ultramarine blue, burnt umber, quinacridone magenta and titanium white, and I apply the marks in different directions to give the illusion of a stormy sky, which also brings me to the subject of the sky. I've purposely made it much darker and stormy looking so it will contrast against the sea. The top of the wave is in light, so that will stand out in the painting and create more drama and atmosphere. So with that in mind, let's have a quick look at the anatomy of a wave, because understanding this will help us to paint a better seascape. Taking a look at a cross-section of a wave with the light shining behind it, we have the crest of the wave at the top and the trough of the wave at the bottom. With the light shining behind it, the face of it is in shadow, and then we have highlights at the top, which instantly creates drama. This is why seascapes are so fun to paint, especially if they're stormy. If you're new to painting seascapes, have a go at painting the light as if it's coming from behind or the side of the wave, as you'll get some really dramatic effects. So, returning to my painting and using a number 6 flat bristle brush, I start reworking the highlights of the wave and the white water, but this time I'm not using just white on its own. I'm reducing the tone of the white and making it a little darker by adding in a little ultramarine blue, burnt umber and a tiny amount of quinacridone magenta. And by making it darker, it means when I add lighter tone to it later on in the painting, it will make it look more three-dimensional and therefore more dramatic. I think this is quite important to do in a painting, as you don't want to use just straight white from a tube. By doing this, you'll risk making the painting look flat. The highlights in the white water and the top of the breaking wave, contrasted against the shadows of the water and the dark sky, are what is going to make this seascape look dramatic. Hopefully. Anyway, that's how we can add some light and atmosphere to the painting, so let's continue on with working that paint and adding some more detail. So now I'm at the stage of the painting where I'm adding more detail and overall just refining the image. I rework that breaking wave, adding more colour, the same colours that I used for the blocking, so that's ultramarine blue, cobalt teal, phthalo green and titanium white, all in varying amounts. I'm using a 1/2 inch dagger brush and I'm working the paint to give the illusion of turbulent water as the wave is breaking. And using another dagger brush, I sharpen up the shadows in the white water in the foreground. Next, I go back to the breaking wave that's in shadow, and I'm using a number 6 flat bristle brush, where I'm applying ultramarine blue mixed with cobalt blue and a tiny bit of quinacridone magenta and titanium white. I'm defining the form of the breaking wave and painting in reflected light, which makes it look more three-dimensional. Here, using a number 6 flat bristle brush, I start adding more highlight to the white water and the crest of the wave. I still don't want it completely white yet, so I'm still mixing in a little bit of ultramarine blue and burnt umber and quinacridone magenta, but less this time to increase the tone and make it lighter. And this will help to make the foam and the spray in the white water look much more three-dimensional. Next, I move on to the rocks on the right side of the painting. The rocks are reflecting in the light, so I need to communicate this in the painting, and I'm mixing a combination of burnt umber, burnt sienna and cadmium yellow, also titanium white, and I'm just varying the tone and the texture to create that illusion. Dagger brushes are great for painting rocks. Because of the angle of the brush, you can make a whole wide range of marks and create the illusion of jagged and sharp rocks. I apply the same technique and the same colours to the rocks on the left in the foreground, just working that colour and keeping in mind where the light is coming from in the painting. In a similar method to how I'm painting the highlights of the sea, with each successive paint layer I'm adding to the areas of the rocks in light, I'm applying lighter tone. So now that the rocks are underway, I return to the sea. Now you notice on the breaking wave I've painted some foam patterns on there, but I forgot to record them, so sorry about that. I mixed the colours of the foam patterns with ultramarine blue, titanium white, and if required a bit of burnt umber just to desaturate the colour. With the sea in the foreground dry again, I add more detail to the white water and the crest of the wave. I'm still mixing in a little bit of ultramarine blue, burnt umber, quinacridone magenta and titanium white, but again much less, so tonally it's lighter than the previous layer. And I'm also adding the marks a bit more sparingly, just to give the illusion of certain parts of the water sparkling in the sun. Using a fan brush is a great way of giving the illusion of droplets of water that are sparkling in the sun as the wave is breaking. You can get some really cool effects with a fan brush when painting seascapes, so include a fan brush to your arsenal of paintbrushes. The final details of the painting is where we add maximum light and effects to the seascape. This is where we add our lightest tones to the painting. Using a No. 1 round bristle brush, I mix titanium white with a small amount of burnt umber and paint some small highlights on the rocks on the left hand side in the foreground, and this gives the illusion that the rocks are wet. I add more reflected light into the breaking wave that's in shadow, and this again is just a combination of ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, a bit of quinacridone magenta. In some cases you can add burnt umber as well just to desaturate, but I mix this in varying amounts just to give texture. Using a 1/4 inch dagger brush, I'm just refining the foam patterns in the wave by adding a bit of lighter tone. This helps to give the illusion of reflected light in some turbulent water. To create the glow on the top of the breaking wave, I use a 1/2 inch Mundy mop brush, and I just dry brush titanium white mixed with a tiny amount of yellow oxide on top of the breaking wave. Using a No. 1 round bristle brush, I complete the painting by using pure titanium white and adding droplets and marks to show that the water is glistening and shining in the direct sunlight. Adding these final details with our lightest tone is what really makes the painting come alive and makes the seascape look three-dimensional. So let's recap and go over what we covered in the video. Start with a composition. Got the focal point that's, in this case, to the left of the centre but not in the middle of the painting, so make sure it's never in the middle, and either go for a high or a low horizon when painting seascapes. I'm generally using bigger brushes for the blocking in phase and not worried about detail whatsoever, and using looser brush strokes helps to add more life to the painting, especially to start with. In order to create light and atmosphere in this painting, I deliberately opted for a dark sky, which is contrasted nicely against the highlights in the breaking wave and the white water. Strong dark shadows contrasted against light highlights in a painting really adds drama and atmosphere to a painting. With each successive layer of paint, adding lighter colour will give your painting a more three-dimensional look. And save your lightest tones until the end of the painting. So in this case it's just using a round brush with pure titanium white, adding the illusion of sea spray and water droplets on the white water and the crest of the wave. Thanks for watching. I hope I've given you some inspiration to paint some seascapes. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Don't forget the link below to the written notes that accompany this video, and there's also some links to my other social media sites which include Instagram, Facebook and Steemit. But until then, I'll see you in the next video.